Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healing the Spirit. In this episode, I would like to share an invitation to an upcoming course that I will be running, which is very simply and directly titled Venus and Mars. It is a 3-month alchemical immersion, and this course is really designed to help you rekindle your inner flame and to fall back in love with your life again. It's a really special offering that I've been working on for some time because when it comes to courses, I usually find that I'm being called to share learnings, perspectives, practices that have supported me during a period, during a cycle that I recently completed. I'm coming out of a period where I felt a massive resistance to follow my instincts and to really be in the flow of life. I was constantly second guessing myself because there were big life changes that were on the horizon. And I felt a lot of pressure to actively do my part to make these changes. What I learned on the other side of it is that big changes often correspond with our own internal willingness and our own internal capacity to follow what it is that we're drawn to and essentially to move away from everything that no longer feels exciting to us. It sounds simple because conceptually, yes, it's very simple. But in practice, it can be quite challenging. And the reason why this is, I believe, is because many of us have a hard time affirming that who we are at our core is enough. And our instincts are really that impulse that come from our core, right? The core of who we are beyond conditioning, beyond our mental conception. And in this immersion, we will invite in the energy of Venus and Mars to transform the pain that we hold in our physical, emotional bodies, as well as in our own self concepts that can often make it very challenging to be present right here, right now, and to listen to the immediacy and the purity of how our life force wants to move through us. So, this course is designed for folks who are in the space where I was in. You may feel like big changes are happening. Perhaps you can sense that there are new creative projects, there are new phases in your relationships, new business ideas, new chapters in your life, but somehow you are really struggling to make space for it. You're struggling to let go of your sense of debt and obligation to your current reality and everything in a three-dimensional world that is plugged into that reality. And some part of you is really hanging on to that old identity. As I mentioned, this offering is a 3-month immersion and it will be running from March 1st to the end of May. We meet twice a week on Tuesday night and Friday afternoon, Eastern Time in the United States, and each session is about 60 minutes. Every month, we will meet for 3 weeks and then we'll have 1 week of integration. It may sound like a lot of meetups, but really, the course itself is designed to feel very relevant to your life and very implementable for your everyday experiences. Yes, we will be covering astrological concepts, but the work that we do here goes so much deeper than that. The work here is really to continue to come back to the concept and kind of the mental scaffolding that astrology can provide and deepen into our lived experience. And what I found is wherever we put our thoughts, right, our energy goes there. And so when we allow our energy to return over and over to our lives and the different areas of life that we're currently working on, that we're currently tending, transformation begins to occur. And it happens in a way that is effortless, that is beautiful, pleasurable, and very often feels kind of like a miracle. Um, and all it takes really is like anchoring, right? All it takes is your intention, your commitment, and the space to be able to do it. Having a facilitator walk you through this process, having other people in the community also contributing to the energy can be so helpful in helping you come back to the flow, helping you really fall in love with all aspects of your life again. So, if you've been enjoying this podcast for some time, this experience is like getting to luxuriate in the energy that you know and love through this podcast. And you get to do that, we get to do that twice a week. And I think you'll really love it. And we'll also be doing hands on energy practices, meditations, contemplations to really assist you in softening into allowing more of yourself into your life. More abundance, more pleasure, more connection, more inspiration. Because that's truly when we think about energy, when we think about, the truth of energy is really love, is really unconditional love. And all we need is to get out of the way, right? Get out of the way and resensitize ourselves to the ways that our impulses want to move through us, which is really what else can we want, right? So, yeah, you will be able to find the link to join in the show notes to read more about the offering, to see if it not only feels relevant, but nutritive to where you're currently at in your life and in your spiritual path. And we'll start in a couple weeks at the start of March. In the meantime, I would love to share the intro video and audio for the course with all of you here. That way, you will get a sense, you will get a taste of what we'll be doing in the immersion, and more importantly, why we're doing what we're doing. Okay, I hope that you enjoy, and I hope to see some of you there. Why Venus and Mars? Why do we invoke these two energies, archetypes, and ancient beings into our space? What benefits might we begin experiencing when we work with Venus and Mars? Are there any precautions we might want to take as we intentionally attune to their influence? And finally, how might this work impact our greater communities? How might it ripple outwards towards our friends and family, our coworkers, our children, and the world at large? As the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke would say, these are questions to live into. In other words, there's not one definite set of answers to these questions. In this video, I would like to offer a perspective so that you can begin the process of living into these questions throughout our immersion. We live in a universe that is alive. What do I mean by that? Every rock, every tree, every star, every matter has their own intelligence and agency, which is connected to the intelligence of the larger living body of the cosmos. The planets are ancient beings. Scientists speculate that Venus and Mars were formed about 4.6 billion years ago, along with the rest of our solar system. And so, any human stories, any mythologies we may have throughout time and across cultures, at best, they only paint incomplete pictures of the nature of these beings. At the same time, it is also important to hold the possibility that humans have the ability to directly communicate with these beings. The truth is, we simply don't know who we are. We don't know the true nature of universe. We have intelligent theories, we have our own direct experiences, but we don't know the capital T truth of how to fully make sense of these experiences we're having. Now, this is both disorienting and also exhilarating because if we don't fully know, then perhaps the possibilities are endless If there's an equal chance of being correct as there is being incorrect, then perhaps the most important thing that we can do, perhaps the only thing we can do, is to explore and to continue learning. Learning doesn't just happen through books. In fact, the kind of learning that happens within academic institutions through textbooks, professors, courses, these are all relatively new ways of learning. What we now call traditional methods of learning are actually not even traditional at all. They're in fact quite modern. For millennia, humans have been accruing knowledge through primarily direct experiences. The first humans who discovered fire, for example, they didn't have a textbook. They didn't learn to start fires through a step-by-step guidebook or asking Google or ChatGPT, right? They used their senses, they used their instincts, they leaned upon their intuition, they experimented, they lean upon occurrences that are unexpected, maybe even that are accidents, in order to accrue the body of knowledge, one experience at a time. So, in this immersion, I invite us to pay as much attention to direct experiences as we do books, fact sheets, and experts' opinions. One of the premises of esoteric studies is encapsulated in the saying from the Emerald Tablet, as above, so below. But remember, that sentence is incomplete by itself. It's followed by the reverse as well. As below, so above. In other words, the macro reflects the micro, but the micro also reflects the macro. Here's one of my favorite quotes from Benabel Wen, which came from the book The Tao of Craft. To know yourself is to know the universe. Study of the universe and the physical and metaphysical realities of the universe is thus a study of yourself. When the way of the macrocosm is veiled to you, look to the way of the microcosm, and then the mystery will be unveiled. That is the foundation from which you will build your knowledge of craft. In other words, by studying your own life, your own experiences, your own nature, you will begin to understand the universe itself. Perhaps not in its totality, but through the unique prism of your own perspectives and of your own experiences. Venus and Mars, out of the seven traditional planets, point to the most embodied, corporeal, and direct experiences we have as humans living in bodies. We all universally experience pleasure, pain, satisfaction, and rage. We also universally experience repressions around these themes. However, the stories we individually attach to these experiences are mostly unique to our own individual lives and unique to our individual bodies. When we work with Venus and Mars, we open up to our own cabinets of pleasure and pain. We work with what holds us back from following our instincts, from following the pulsating river of life force that moves through our bodies, that flow through our meridian pathways, that pools in our energy bodies. In the study of alchemy, Venus is associated with the process of unification, whereas Mars is associated with the process of separation. All of us came into this incarnate form through fertilization, the unification of the sperm and the egg. And this process happened through an act of penetration. In order for two opposite forces to come together in unity, a breach of boundary is necessary. That breakthrough is an inevitable component of creation. We are living through a time of massive changes. I believe that future generations will look back at our time and they will marvel at the speed and the magnitude of the changes that we're currently living through. Living through rapid changes require us to really stay on the pulse. It requires us to stay dynamic. And in order to do that, we need to have a reference point. Thankfully, We already have that reference point. That reference point is our own body. Our bodies carry the wisdom of instinct. Venus governs the instinct of attraction. Venus draws you closer towards what is meant for you. Venus gives you access to a sense of affinity. Here are some examples of Venus in action. You may find yourself at a party and you thought to yourself, wow, that person is so interesting. I want to lean in closer. I want to get to know them. I want to have a conversation with them. I want them to get to know me. Or perhaps you are flicking through a travel magazine and you saw a picture of a place that completely drew you in. And you felt yourself wondering, who would I be if I spent some time in that on that beach or in that jungle or in that city, immersed in that culture? I wonder. Perhaps you listened to a song, you came across a song on one of the streaming platforms or on YouTube, and you felt something awakening in you. And you thought to yourself, I want to sing it. I want to dance to it. I want to become the song, essentially. On the other hand, Mars governs the instinct of separation. Mars repels you away from what is not meant for you. Mars gives you access to a sense of agency. Here are some examples. I don't want anything to do with that person. I'm going to leave this party. I'm not interested. Or you see a picture of a place and you thought, ooh, I really don't want to go there. The vibe feels off. Maybe some of you have experienced this walking at night by yourself and passing through an alley and just feeling like, oh, I gotta pick up my pace. I gotta move a little quickly. Something doesn't feel safe. Or maybe if you are a creative person, you recognize halfway through your project, hmm, this is no longer interesting to me. I'm going to take everything I learned and I'm going to direct my energy elsewhere into something that is catching my attention in this moment. Cultivating deeper relationships with Venus and Mars help us come into truer relationships with our own form, beyond the conditioning of the mind and beyond our past experiences. The more we know our own body signals for when to lean in and when to dip out, the more skillfully we can navigate the wild changes that are ahead of us. In this three-dimensional world, we are individuated beings, meaning we live in our own individual bodies and we have our own individual perspectives. We are not meant to do everything. We are not meant to fill every need. We are not meant to be everything. Our responsibility is to learn to be exactly who we are so that we can play the roles that are correct for us at any given moment. When we honor our preferences and we honor our capacities, we naturally contribute to the web of life. The main challenge when it comes to working with Venus and Mars is how to skillfully work with our own pain bodies. Most of us grow up in contexts where we were told that it's not okay to follow our natural instincts. We experience various kinds of shaming, constricting, or even downright violence for expressing ourselves in accordance with our impulses. As we explore Venus and Mars, inevitably we will come into contact with this reverberation and impacts that these experiences had on us. Most of it will track as somatic pain, as stress, anxiety, worry, as nervousness, as disruption, as emotional waves. They also come often with mental stories about why we experience what we experienced. The process of resensitizing ourselves to the pain of being alive in a human body can be intense and inconvenient. So, My ask is for all of us to be kind to ourselves, to be gentle with our pace, and to be patient with the process that ultimately will lead back to falling in love with our own lives. The path to healing doesn't always feel good. And that doesn't mean that we are not making progress. That doesn't mean that we are not moving in the right direction. Very often, the medicine and the poison are one and the same. The real difference lies in the dosage. So, calibrate yourself. Use our time together as opportunities to practice kindness with yourself and with one another. To take a moment out of your day to truly give your entire system the space that's necessary to be with your experience. Not to force yourself to change before you're ready, not to burden yourself with mental expectations about what you are supposed to get out of this experience. All that I really ask of all of us here is just to be present. True lasting change in working with Venus and Mars comes from being your own best friend and ultimately being your own best lover. I invite you to play with this contemplation question on a daily basis, which is, what is the most loving thing that I can give to myself today? And of course, throughout our time together, we will explore different ways to be present with this question. The reason why this way of orienting to ourselves is so incredibly efficacious, perhaps even potentially bringing about results that can feel like miracles, is because who we are deep inside, our core essence, is really the secret code to the dream reality we would like to live. It is the main ingredient. And the real work is not to add more things into our lives. The real work is not to hoard knowledge. It's not to engage in a never ending series of morning practices. The real work is ultimately to scrub away the layers of illusion. The illusion that holding on to our pain is how we heal them is absolutely not true. In reality, we are already always healed. We are already always wise and powerful. And we simply need to follow the instructions that come from within, which often looks like quieting down the noise in order for that voice to emerge. Because that wise voice is really consciousness itself, asking us to do our individual part in expanding the field of awareness, to remember that it is through our differentiation, our unique preferences, our unique sets of affinities, as well as the places where we say, no, I really don't want to do that. These places are actually a reminder of our own unique role within that one living body. That differentiation isn't an inconvenience, it's not a problem to be solved. It's rather something to honor. I also want to speak to the broader impact that this work can have on our larger extended communities. On the surface, this work can be misunderstood as work that is self centered. The incredible technological advances of our time seeks to minimize inconveniences, and in that process, we often lose touch with some aspect of our essence of being human. To be human is to be in a relationship with everything. Everything that we do, every thought that we think, every word that we say impact the greater web of life. Even when nobody seems to be watching, energy ripples outwards in significant ways. Temporarily, you may be invited by Venus and Mars to go deeper into yourself, to understand your own preferences, and to befriend your personal wounds. But if you continue to listen to the guidance, very quickly you will find that the transformation is not just for serving the self. is not just for serving you. You will be called back into service for others as you embrace a vision of yourself that is more true to your core essence. You may find that as you walk through life, you become more sensitive to the sufferings of others. But instead of getting caught up or lost in the feelings, you simultaneously feel inspired to take aligned actions. Actions that go beyond any kind of self conscious performance of here's me being a good person into truly in the moment, becoming a vessel, becoming a channel, becoming the hand for the inherent goodness of life itself. So don't be surprised if you find yourself moved to do your part to contribute to the cause of those who experience painful impacts of injustice or those who are recipients of senseless violence. Venus is ultimately about finding common grounds. Venus is about building bridges. Venus is about translating love, which is a universal energy, into everyday actions and tangible resources that we can all share and enjoy together. And Mars is about honoring the agency of every single entity in the cosmos and finding that inner courage that's necessary to bring about movement and evolution, which often comes from directly interacting with tension. And this is where the paradox lies, right? This is why I love bringing both Venus and Mars together, because without one, the other is incomplete. There's a way in which Mars and Venus, in on both practical and mystical levels, really complete one another. It's so beautiful. And so as you deepen into this work, let this impulse move through you. And you will find that what you do for others is ultimately also what you do for yourself, because we are all part of one giant collective living body, living cosmos. We are not separate from one another. So thank you for being here. I honor your commitment to your path, and I know that the investment of your resources, of your energy, your heart, your intention will multiply many, many times in all directions. I'm sending you all so much love. Peace, everyone.